And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Around the Bases with Bubba and Mo, episode 97. We finally have JT Realmuto wearing a different uniform from the Fish. We'll get to that in a minute. You can check out the podcast at Around Bases Pod. I am at BD Intric, and my co-host, as always, with another ring on his finger, is found on Twitter at Boston_Mo. Mo, how we doing?
Oh, what a game, huh? If you're watching at home, you probably fell asleep. But let me tell you, being there, it's a different story, and it was incredible. But yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. No, I agree with you. Like I enjoyed watching it there's about 10 of us at somebody's house. You know, people that don't appreciate the game of football were annoyed by it, but I thought it was a good game. It was back and forth and fun, so it was good. And until that pick happened, it was anybody's game, so it was fun.
Yeah, it's a different story because literally they never blitz. I mean, the Patriots don't. It's just their MO. There's the bend don't break strategy. And late in this year, they decided to blitz, and obviously that's why that pick happened, because they brought the two safeties after Goff, and he couldn't figure stuff out. So yeah, it was pretty awesome. 80% Patriots fans, as we know, because there are no fans in LA right now for the Rams, and St. Louis fans mostly hate them. So that's what it was, and it was just a great game. And granted, they cost a lot of money, but if you can go to one Super Bowl, you got to do it.
Yep, I recommend it for all the big sports. I've been lucky enough to go to a few World Series, Stanley Cup, and some other things. And you go to those big games, even if it's not your teams involved, it's pretty epic. So Super Bowl's on the list for sure. Good stuff there. Let's talk about something that happened. It's been a pathetic like cold stove of late. Not even like the minor league transactions. Hey, Hunter Pence signed with the Rangers, if you're curious, but really nothing exciting going on. But JT Realmuto traded to the Philadelphia Phillies in return for Realmuto, Jorge Alfaro, young catcher, pitching prospects Sixto Sanchez, and lefty Will Stewart, and some international signing bonus money as well. It's kind of been mixed reviews, Mo. I've heard some people like it, some thinking they ain't get enough. What's your initial thoughts on this deal?
Well, number one, I thought the third piece was going to be a little bit better. I know they were talking about Mickey Moniak and Medina and a couple other guys, even Adam Hazley and Alec Baum, but I don't think there was any chance of them trading Hazley or Baum in there. And Medina, that would have been good for the Marlins. I mean, obviously 2 years left. The Marlins waited for as long as they could for the best deal. And if Sixto turns out to what he is supposed to be in terms of the scouts and whatnot, granted, apparently he's been out of shape. He's 20 years old, so that this will happen. And he had to be shut down because of elbow inflammation last year. So that is a big problem for them. But if he turns out to be what everyone thinks he's supposed to be, then this trade will work out for both teams, because you obviously upgrade a catcher. Jorge Alfaro, nice prospect, right? But doesn't have the pedigree that JT Realmuto does. I mean, we know that. So they improve greatly over the next 2 years. Now, whether they sign him or not, we don't know. But either way, they're going for it, and they're going to sign Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. It's going to happen. And if it doesn't, then this is it's not, I think saying it's kind of a waste is probably the wrong move, but why would you give up a couple prospects for JT Realmuto if you're not going to go for it in the next 2 years? It just wouldn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine one of those big boys is coming. Most likely, we'd have to think Harper, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
But you can't count out Machado. But we're pretty much on the same page, and it looks like it'll be Harper. And it just makes the most sense because it puts together at least a 2 year window, if not longer. Sixto, yeah, all the reports were he'd be really awesome. Then he got hurt, and there were some serious concerns there for a little bit. And even I saw like Matt Thompson and some of the Prospect Live guys tweeting about it, that they had him ranked down so low coming into the season because they were worried about his injury. And now they're saying, well, if they pass the Marlins physical, he's got to be okay, right? That's the question. So they might move him up the rankings there. It comes back, if you look at the big picture of it, Jeter's traded off a lot of guys. And if anything, he's put a lot of, I'd say, quantity in the minors, and we're going to see how much quality comes out of it. But at worst, he's rebuilding the system. He's adding depth to it, and hopefully some of it shakes out. The question I have, they spent this much time shopping him around. To me, it feels like I thought they were going to get something even more than this. What about you?
See, I like Sixto Sanchez a lot, so I understand what you're saying, and I think if he didn't have the elbow injury, as you mentioned with the Prospect Live guys, I think he probably would have been a top 20 prospect. So that's a pretty good get for only 2 years at JT. Alfaro is going to be a major league catcher for years. Now, what will he be in terms of framing and really controlling what will be a young pitching staff down the road, right? Because they're completely rebuilding. And I was just going to Roster Resource now to kind of look at it, and it's just like right now, who's the Marlins' best hitter now that they got rid of Realmuto? They hope it's Lewis Brinson, right? Because that's the guy they got for Christian Yelich, and he had a rough first year, but all signs point to, hey, tremendous athlete, great prospect. He'll be fine. He'll get it. And that's what they have to hope. But right now, like, is it Brian Anderson? Is it Neil Walker? Who is it right now?
Yeah, you got Starling Castro, Brian Anderson, Neil Walker. You got a bunch of question marks.
The Grandy man.
Yeah, I say this for Curtis Granderson, a minor league deal. All in all, they got a bunch of retreads that aren't horrible, and they got them for cheap. So it's like it's what these teams need to do. They're signing players that you would expect other kind of mid-tier teams that could possibly be close to continuing to sign for cheap, and they're just not. Obviously, I don't think the Marlins are going to contend. I'm not going that far, but I like what they're doing to at least put something on the field that might have a chance to win 60 games. So, because they literally could have just said screw it all, and at worst, they're bringing all these older guys on that they can trade at the deadline. So, I see where they're going with this. It's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out, though, and it wasn't too long ago they had Christian Yelich, Marcell Ozuna, Giancarlo Stanton, and so much more, and now it's all gone. So if you're a Marlins fan, good luck.
Yeah, and that rotation right now, Urania, Winling Chen, Wei Ying Chen, Dan Straley, Trevor Richards, Pablo Lopez. It's just they got to hope, number one, Sandy Alcantara maybe has a decent year, and they got to hope that Victor Mesa just is off and running. Like, that's the big one.
And there's good talks about Victor Mesa. Talking to Ralph Lifshitz, he's pretty high on him because I haven't read a ton on him outside of when we've talked about him on here and a couple other minor things. But Ralph's opinion, I know you'd pretty much agree with me here, is pretty solid when it comes to prospect analysis. Mm-hmm. And he had high praises about him. Like, there's still question marks because how much do you really know about a guy from Cuba? But what they do know for now, he says, it looks really darn good.
Yeah, and they've already updated the top 30 prospects on Prospect Live from Miami, and Sixto jumped right to number one, obviously ahead of Victor Mesa. Yeah. So he's one, Victor Mesa's two, and then you got the athlete Monty Harrison striking out almost 40% of the time in the minors. So you have to figure that one out too. But yeah, it's a tough one. And by the way, maybe we'll probably talk about Pacoda next week because it came out today. But they are one of only 3 teams that they've projected under 80 wins, and the other one, unfortunately for you, is the Giants, which shocked me that they projected them that low, considering what Arizona did. But it's kind of interesting. They got everyone over 80 wins in the NFL.
I haven't looked at them all yet, but I did see Joe Sheehan tweet out that I think it's 10 or 12 National League teams are all within a chance to make the postseason, according to Pacoda, like within just a couple of games. So he basically said if Pacoda's right, this is going to be a great season finally.
The entire NL Central are at least 500 is how they project it.
I could see that. Yeah.
Reds and Pirates both 81 and 81. I think I forget who it is, but whoever's winning the division is 89. I think it's the Cardinals. I think, but we'll talk about that next week.
Sounds good.
All right, let's get to some news. Again, we got not a lot to talk about today, so we get kind of a brief episode. But the MLB union discussing significant rule changes, and Jason Stark kind of came out with an article about it. And those rule changes, I don't need to talk about the mound, moving back the mound, or lowering the mound, or changing the strike zone, yada yada yada. I think the couple of the big ones that they are talking about is, number one, the universal DH. I know you're against putting the DH in the NL.
I'm not against it. I like real baseball, but I want it to be universal either side. And if it means the DH, it's more fun for everybody involved, I'm fine with. But I think we talked about it before. If you're trying to speed the game up, adding another offensive player might not speed the game up.
Yeah, especially in the NL, obviously, because that pitcher is an automatic out for the most part.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah.
But at the same time, when you look at it, and I guess we'll just jump right into that one before we go with the second one I want to talk about is, sure, it might not speed the game up, but at the same time, pitchers aren't going deep as it is. And, they got some teams doing the opener. So pitchers aren't hitting more than 2 times unless you're Max Scherzer or, someone who really goes deep into games. So, we see pitch hitting already, and the teams. I mean, imagine if they did it this year, which they do it this year, this late. I just don't see how they could do that in terms of free agency. But man, teams like the Cubs and the Cardinals would love that. I mean, then you put Jose Martinez in a DH, Kyle Schwarber in a DH. It would be great. Now, I want it all DH because I think, number one, it would probably make the game a little bit more entertaining. I know that it might slow the game down somewhat, but I'm all for something being universal, and I know they can't go the opposite way in the AL, so it just makes sense to go the DH.
Yeah, I'm all for it, and I think the biggest thing you said there is I don't know how they're going to possibly go ahead and make it happen this year because it's going to screw up all the free agency, all the possible trades, like all these things that are rumored to be happening, and we're already mad that things aren't happening yet. I think it pretty much just completely put it on hold. And that like Jose Martinez should have been traded by now, but now that you put the rumor of a DH coming in, well, heck, why would they trade their DH to somewhere else? It's just little things like that. I'm starting to become much more okay with the idea of the DH. It's just I hope they wait till next year, do the proper way and go about it.
Yeah, I think you have to wait till 2020. And I was watching MLB Now the other day, and I was listening to Ron Darling talk about it. And obviously, an old school guy, I mean, NL guy, he was batting and whatever. And Smoltz talked about it too, in the same boat with the Braves. And he kind of talked about, a lot of teams, they brought the stat up of all the AL DHs last year, and they have to understand that there aren't a lot of David Ortiz or Edgar Martinez anymore. It's a lot of these teams are using it, number one, as a day off for some guys outside of the field, and number two, more of a platoon split with some different guys than a full-time DH, where it's is really just Nelly Cruz for the most part, maybe Giancarlo, but there just isn't a lot there. And I think once they go to the DH in the NL, you'll see a little bit more of people, really just hitting. Jose Martinez is the perfect example.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. The second one above I want to talk about is pitchers have to face a minimum of 3 batters. And I understand this will bring more strategy into the game. I think this will never happen, but I think it's a talking point for most teams. I am fully against this.
Yeah, I think this is horrible. You talk about one of the best parts about baseball being the strategy of baseball. Well, I just took out the strategy of baseball. It's like, okay, here comes the pitcher A. Now we don't have to worry about, we can pinch hit anybody we want now because we're not going to take them out and do any lefty, righty, whatever matchups you're talking about here. Yeah, this makes no sense to me at all. I guess they're trying to make it so fewer pitching changes, sure, whatever. But I think this is just one of the dumb ones that you can think of. There's been many thrown out there, and this one's just not smart in my opinion. Because what if the guy's just getting absolutely shelled and gives like 3 straight solo homers up? Like what are we doing here? This is just stupid.
And people think it might. I've had a couple buddies kind of text me, "Oh, what do you think about this? Could make the game go faster, less pitching changes." Yeah, but what if the guy comes in and gets shelled, and now it's bases loaded with 1 out or whatever, and then if they bring in another guy and get that guy warmed up, there's a lot of different things that could happen in that sense. And you'd have to. It gets people talking. Well, what if you bring one guy in with 2 outs? He gets out of the inning. Does he have to come back out? And if he's in the NL and they still have a pitcher batting, does he have to bat at that time if his place comes up? So there's just a lot of things that I think it just wouldn't work at all.
Yeah, I think that's a bad one. The DH, it's going to happen. I'm okay with it. I've changed my tune a bit on it, but the 3-batter minimum, that's pretty stupid, pretty dumb.
Yeah, and the last thing I kind of want to talk about, he did mention something about September rosters, which we've talked about before, is the changing of the draft, which sort of Scott Boras went over that we talked about, if it not last week, the week before. But it was, sort of the union has proposed awarding extra draft picks to revenue sharing recipients that make the playoffs, as well as later round picks to revenue sharing recipients that miss the postseason but finish with a winning record. So, you wouldn't have teams tanking so much to just restart if they get extra draft picks, because they're able to still rebuild if they get those. And they, it's just more lottery balls for them to hit on different guys and really get the depth of that system. If they were able to win. And it would probably wake up free agency a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I think that's something they need to fine tune. There's a lot of good ideas that we've talked about the last few weeks on the kind of competitive nature to help with the draft picks and all that kind of. I think and the roster sizes. There's a lot of good ideas out there that needs to be fine tuned, and maybe they can just hire us to do it. I don't know, but I think there's definitely a lot that can be used in that aspect of it to make things better. Like you maybe do it also, but like I've played in tons of fantasy leagues where to keep people playing instead of giving up, there's incentives like that. It's like, okay, you're not going to make it in the playoffs, so the 4 teams that aren't going to make the playoffs or whatever, 6 teams, now whoever finishes top there gets the first pick or something like that. Like we've talked about this many times. But I think there needs to be a system. It's scary that Scott Boras kind of started this whole thing. But I guess,
guy for a reason.
Yeah, I was about to say that, he's a rich man for a reason. He's been in this business for so long. He's seen it all. And you got to at least – he may be pompous at times, but you got to at least listen to what he has to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk a little fantasy baseball here. We did second base and third base last week. Let's talk about what, to me, is one of the deeper positions, especially compared to what we're used to in the fantasy world, the shortstop position. A lot going on here. There are 6 shortstops inside the top 20 this year. I think we used to never talk about it. Francisco Lindor, Trey Turner, Alex Bregman, multi-position Alex Bregman, Manny Machado still looking for a home, Javi Baez, Trevor Story, all in the top 20. Mo, how do you rank those 6?
So I think the easy one is Lindor 1. I mean, I know you could probably, go back and forth with Turner if you really think Turner is going to give a little bit more power. But I think personally Lindor is just the easy one at 1. Turner's 2 for me. I think he's going to have a huge year. I think he started off slow last year. I think he's going to steal a few more bases, and he's really going to get there. The next one is Manny Machado. This was tough for me in terms of him and Bregman a little bit. They're kind of close. Bregman probably steal a few more bases than Manny Machado, but you got to believe in Manny Machado's bat. He'll probably have. He'll probably have actually. Manny Machado did steal more bases than Bregman last year, but I do think they're going to get Bregman running a little bit more than he normally has. So Bregman's number 4 for me. I have Story number 5. I know he kind of came out of nowhere. Like we knew he had a ton of power. We knew he could steal a couple bags, but we didn't think because of the strikeouts that he could really keep that average up and get that OBP up. And he did that last year. And the Coors factor helps him as well. And then we've already talked about Javi Baez at second and third base. I'm not drafting him at that ADP. We're going to talk about Mondesi in a few minutes, and him and Javi Baez had an 18% swinging strike rate last year. Once every 5 pitches they see, they are missing the ball. It's just, I just don't believe in him or Mondesi at their current ADP, so I won't probably have either of them.
Yeah, it's tough. For me, it's Lindor. Kind of like you said, to me, it's pretty clear cut. He's going to be a 5 category contributor up there, and pretty good in all 5, like really good in all 5 categories. Then I have Machado second because I am a big believer that hopefully it's in a good ballpark, Philadelphia or Chicago. Again, we probably think Harper's going to Philly. I really, really think Machado's going over 40 home runs this year. I think he's going to keep stealing some bags. I think at least 10 stolen bases. The batting average is legit. I absolutely love Machado. I got Trey Turner third. I've said elsewhere that you can flip-flop those 2, and I'm not going to argue with you. I can understand if you want to go focus on stolen bases more, knock yourself out. Either one's fine. Trey Turner's a stud. If he can get close to 15 homers again to go with those 40-plus to 50-plus stolen bases, that's tremendous. Lineup's still very good. And I got Bregman 4, Trevor Story 5. The gains he made in his strikeout rate last year correlated, like you said, to more production in the power department and everywhere else. So I like Trevor Story there. And then Javi Baez just because I have to, a 6th. I won't have anything to do with the man. I think he's a good ball player. He's not a top 20 pick in fantasy football or fantasy baseball. But, Javi Baez not on my board.
Yep.
All right, Adalberto Mondesi. You just hinted at him. He's now the 7th shortstop off the board. He's going to pick 40. It's about 20 picks after Trevor Story, about a round and a half after Trevor Story. He has already been flying up the board since January 1st. His low pick is 53. low pick of 21, high pick of 53, depends on what you decide low and high is. But people are liking him. People like him a lot, Mo. Do you like him a lot?
As I mentioned, I can't do it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. The guy doesn't walk at all. He strikes out a ton. I just mentioned 18% swinging strike. He's just not a big contact guy. Is X average on Statcast, and granted it's only 200 balls in play, I believe, so it's not a huge sample, but it's what he's done in the minors most of his career, and that's like a 246 average compared to what he was 271 last year. I don't believe in him. I really don't. Obviously, he's going to steal a ton of bases, but I guess my question to you would be, wouldn't you rather? And I had it right here. You have him, and yeah, he stole 32 bases last year in only 75 games. That's a ton. That he could steal, obviously, double that if he played 150 to 160 games. But I almost would rather just wait for a Jose Peraza or a Tim Anderson deeper, because they're going to end up having around the same average and the same OBP. Maybe Mondesi gets on base a little bit more and is able to steal a little bit more. But I just don't think at that ADP, I'd rather just wait for one of those two guys and get my 25 to 30 steals and call it a day.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Even a guy like Gene Segura, I could see getting back to 25 plus stolen bases.
Yeah.
25 picks later or so. Jose Peraza is a good one. Another one that's not mentioned a lot, Ahmed Rosario, really tore it up in the second half, the last maybe month and a half of the season, and started running like crazy. So he's another guy to look at. There's a handful of guys you can get steals from later after Adalberto Mondesi that I just can't do it. Like if he pops off, he's going to be a big factor in some winning teams. I just don't see how he's going to do it. And the biggest part for me, and it kind of goes the same with Javi Baez, but you look at Adalberto Mondesi, and right now going about pick 41 overall, if you look at all positions. Like right before him, you got Rizzo, Syndergaard, Starling Marte, all guys I pick over him. Then after him, you got Rhys Hoskins, Vladdy Jr., I'm not going to take Cody Bellinger, but Rendon, Corbin, Chris Davis, Bogarts. I take all those guys over Adalberto Mondesi, and that's just me. Maybe that's me trying to be a little safer. It's just way too much risk for me at that point in my draft. Like in a 15-team league, that's like your third pick, and I need I want a little more stability at my third pick.
Yeah, I would 100% take guys like that, and Gene Segura, like you mentioned. I mean, to move away from Seattle and move back into Philadelphia, a huge upgrade in ballpark. He's going to hit 20 homers. I really believe that he's going to come back to that 2016 Diamondback season in another good ballpark without the humidor at that time. I really do think that he's going 2020, and that's wonderful. It's at pick 70 where, like I said, Mondesi, could he go 15-30 again in a whole season? Yeah, but I'm telling you, the average is going to be below 245, and that's at best.
And you got to remember, if anybody, I'm assuming if you listen to this podcast, you enjoyed the movie Major League. You can run like Mays, but if you hit like shit, you can't steal bases. So right. Willie Mays Hayes is the spitting image of what I think Adalberto Mondesi could be. It's very terrifying.
Yes.
And the other factor is not just the guys that are drafted around him that I mentioned. You've mentioned so many other shortstops. The position's so deep that if I'm going to take risk, it'll probably be in a different position where it's a lot more shallow. That it's Vlad Guerrero's like such a polarizing name. At least if I gamble on Vlad Guerrero, A, it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy your fantasy team, which fantasy should be fun. And B, I could see his overall output, given not the stolen base part of it, everything else, being so tremendous, league-winning type stuff. If he performs at this top, then what Adalberto could probably do for you. So that's stuff like that.
Yeah, and you know what the other tough thing about it too is I don't think I've ever seen the shortstop position this deep. I really don't. I mean, you literally have 13 guys in the top 100 in terms of NFBC ADP. Like we said, we got 6 in the top 20. You've got 9 in the top 50. It is very deep. And then when you talk about other guys, I mean, we'll probably get to them, but there are a ton of guys past 200, the Willy Adames, the Marcus Semien, if you're into that sort of thing, Garrett Hampson, Jorge Polanco coming off the PED suspension. So it is just it's really, really deep compared to what we talked about with first base and third base. And that's where, like, I got my first TG FBI tonight, the mock draft. I got my first one starting tonight. So I'm excited to see how it goes. I don't even know what pick I have yet, but I'm excited to see how it goes. There's going to be a ton of strategy involved, especially with the leagues coming out the other day.
Yeah, no, it'll be really, really interesting. Like shortstop goes at least 30 picks deep I could look at and be somewhat okay with. All right. Let's talk about a guy that's coming off a injury-riddled season, like bad back season, and he's come out to say he's good to go. Reports are good. Swinging the bat. Should be back to normal. Carlos Correa is one of those, like Chris Bryant is at third. Carlos Correa is at shortstop. He's going almost pick 50 off the board, ninth shortstop off the board. This is a guy that was going like at the first, second round turn last year. He's been a perennial first round draft pick, coming off of 3 straight 20 homer seasons before last year. What's your thoughts on Carlos Correa? Because I'll just say flat out, I believe the hit tools are coming back. But A, I don't see 100 RBIs, 100 runs, and B, I don't see the stolen bases showing up. So it still makes things – I think he's really good, but it's hard for me to go all in. What's your thoughts on Correa?
Very hard, and it's really you want to throw out that last season just because of the injury. You know, again, 2 seasons in a row of basically 110 games. Last season was much worse. At least the season before, you know, you got 110 games, 422 plate appearances, and you got 24, 84, no steals, but 315 and 391 OBP. You still would probably almost take that. You know, maybe not where you drafted him, but you still probably would take that for 2/3 of the season, whereas last year it was just lost. I mean, his hard hit rate was down to 29%. It's not good. It's not good at all. Ground ball was up, you know, about the same as it was in 2017. But yeah, it wasn't great. You know, right now, I think you could take a chance on him. I think do you agree that probably him and Seager came up with the same fanfare, or do you think that Correa was supposed to be the guy because he was the #1 pick?
It was close, but I'd say Correa was supposed to be the guy. Like Correa was always it felt like was the more dominant figures, like the old days when A-Rod came up with that crew. That there's really good players, but Correa felt like he was the one that was supposed to be the next A-Rod, maybe even. And the back kind of played into it and kind of knocked him down a little bit.
Yeah, because you look at Corey Seager too, with like, you know, his 2014 was just an absolute monster season in high A and double A. Same pretty much goes with, you know, 2015 for him, and that's when he came up. And his first rookie season was very good as well. You know, Correa was just also a beast. I mean, he really was. But the steals were there, and now the steals are gone all of a sudden. So you have to wonder if those will ever come back. I don't think so. I think you probably agree with me. So it's going to be tough for me to take him at pick 49. But like you said, the hit tool is there. It's just, can he stay healthy and really can he get it back? It'll be really interesting to see when all the leagues are drafted, and when a lot of leagues are drafted, depending on where you're in, how high he actually goes. I know NFBC, I think the earliest he's gone is 22, but he's around 49 average right now. So I don't know if I'll own him a lot, Bubba.
Yeah, it's weird. Like 22, what you're saying, and I have it set from January 1st on, and Draft Champions is the one I'm looking at right now, and he hasn't gone higher than 33. So it's really interesting to see where he's rocking and rolling these days. I would take him over Corey Seager. I want zero to do. I take Alberto Mondesi over Corey Seager. I want nothing to do with Corey Seager this year. But everybody, my Twitter's at BDentric. If you ever want to just let me know when I'm wrong, it's fine. But I want nothing to do with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's good, right? We know he's good, but like in terms of fantasy, he doesn't give you steals. RBI has never been more than 77 RBIs. I mean, the runs will probably be between, you know, 90 and 100, and then homers around, you know, right now, most of them have him around like 24 homers. So, yeah, for fantasy wise, there isn't a ton there. So you're taking Mondesi over Seager. Is there anyone past Seager you take over him? Like, are you taking Jerickson Profar over Seager or Jose Peraza, who are right behind them?
I'd take guys like Ahmed Rosario.
Oof.
I'd take Jorge Polanco over him, and Paul DeJong for starters. Yes,
Paul DeJong too.
Yep. I don't believe in Corey Seager at all.
Oh, I like this. I like
Yeah.
this. We're gonna get like some stickies, like it's like intentional talk behind me. I'm gonna put it on my wall just to like have them there, and because that's a. I mean, I don't know if it's a like a bold prediction, but yeah, some people not a big fan of Corey Seager. It's tough, and the Tommy John was on his throwing arm, correct?
Yes.
It wasn't like Labor Torres where it was like his non.
I'm 99% sure. I've been known to be wrong, but I'm pretty positive it
No,
was.
I think
Could be
you're
wrong.
right.
I think so.
Paul DeYoung, that's too much.
Ooh, you don't like the Paul DeYoung hit tool, huh? Not a fan of Paul DeYoung.
I'm not a Paul DeYoung guy. He was exactly what I thought he was last year.
You better meet me during the baseball season when it's the dong time, because
listen, in DFS when he's facing Tana Roark or someone like that, yeah, we'll call each other, but I'm not a Paul DeYoung guy.
Well, let's look at it. Let's look at his steamer. 254, 23, 64 runs, and 76 stolen bases. That's the bottom side. Like the bat, everywhere else has him 25 or more homers. They all have him hitting 250 or better. I'll take those over Corey Seager right now. Any one of those lines. Pick one of them. I'll take him over Corey Seager right now.
Okay. We'll see.
Big fan.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It will be interesting. Asdrubal Cabrera. I have a feeling you put this one on the outline because of my man crush on Asdrubal Cabrera.
I did.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Now I'm pretty sure this is a reference to me, and I get to ask the question. This is the fun part. So Asdrubal Cabrera is the 29th shortstop off the board. They go on to pick 281. That is value, friends. Value. Who do you take over him on his ADP?
Ooh.
You're referring to guys behind him, I'm guessing, right? Or who's he jumping in front of him?
Yeah, no, I mean, like in front of him, who would you take? Okay. Like, obviously, it's a big jump from Marwin Gonzalez to 228, and again,
how is Marwin Gonzalez not signed yet? Like, what the?
Well, JT Realmuto, he was holding everyone hostage. That's what they were waiting for. Apparently,
domino effect.
It's crazy, and this is again, it's Neil Walker we're talking about, and it's Alex Cobb we're talking about. But the later this goes into it, you have to include these guys in terms of. Maybe not Machado and Harper, but like if they continue to sign late, it's going to be delayed a little bit for them. So that comes into play when you're drafting them. But no, I mean, Asdrubal Cabrera over like a Marte, a Simmons, a Taylor, a Jorge Polanco. I'm going to let you answer because you're a bigger Asdrubal guy than I am. I'm not there.
It's hard for me to say I'm going to jump over these guys. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but if you're okay with batting average, I would take Asdrubal's overall production over Andrelton Simmons. If you don't want to play the game of which Marcus Semien shows up, I could go with the consistency of Asdrubal Cabrera. I could see that kind of argument. I'd take him over Chris Taylor of the Dodgers because he just tilted my face off last year, and I'm really worried about playing time for the automatic starters in LA. So I think Asdrubal's there. Other than that, I love Jorge Polanco this year. Willy Adames, I think he's close, but it still might be a year or two away because he's still so damn young. But yeah, I like Asdrubal more so because I think he's insane value for what you get back here at this part of the draft, more so than me jumping over guys. So that's where my love for him is I can go get a guy at pick 281, almost like the 20th round and like 18th round in drafts. That's going to get me 15 plus home. Like his line of consistency every single season is ridiculous.
I'll tell you what, I would wait 100 picks to take him over DeYoung. I'm not taking DeYoung at 181 or 189. I'm waiting 100 picks, and I'm taking Asdrubal Cabrera, especially with the fact that he can play everywhere in the infield except first base.
You know what's interesting about that? If I can get Fangraphs to load real quick. Fangraphs is working really slow for me this afternoon.
Oh, it's working like a charm for me.
There we go. I just got it up. It is interesting because outside of like a deduction of 5 or 6 home runs, we're talking within 10 runs, 10 RBIs, and a better batting average with this dribble 100 picks later. I don't hate that. I'll be totally honest. I don't hate that at all. I think there's a lot there. I think DeYoung's ceiling is much, much higher than his dribble. But if they both just have their kind of normal season, they're a lot closer than 100 picks.
Okay. Yeah, I don't hate that. Like I said, I'm not a DeYoung guy. I get the fly ball percentage is way up there. He's really using that launch angle. I just think there's too much swing and miss there. There really is.
There is a lot. There's a lot like that, just like in Javi Baez too. I'm not comparing the two. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I know. So I, I understand your overall point with Asdrubal is absolutely correct. Where it's like he can play three positions. He's been pretty damn consistent wherever he's gone. I mean, he really has. I mean, there's no steals anymore. Obviously, 33 years old. So you used to get like 8 to 10 steals, which would be huge for him too. And then like right behind them too, depending on when you think he's going to come up, is Fernando Tatis Jr. He's there. I mean, it's very interesting with guys all the way down there. Dansby Swanson, your boy Brandon Crawford. It's kind of insane to me. And I know you've talked about Tim Beckham too. I'm sure we'll get to a couple of these guys in a little bit.
Yeah, and there's one more thing, and I will stop talking about DeYoung unless you bring it up again. It'll be your fault. But he's going to be 26 this year, and one thing I really, really like about him is roster resources probably most of the time has been wrong lately. But if it's right, it goes Carpenter, then DeYoung, Goldschmidt, Ozuna. He's batting second in the middle of that awesomeness. That's going to be really nice.
I'm opening it right now. I don't know why you'd put him second. He seems more like a 5 or 6 guy to me. I wish.
But look at the rest of their lineup. Who you put in second? Colton.
Yeah, no, that's what I was. I mean, you can't put Fowler. You can't put Fowler there. I mean, in a perfect world, it would be Jose Martinez. But unfortunately, the world isn't perfect. But yeah, I guess you have to put him there. I don't know. I want guys on base. Yeah, I guess he gets on base a little bit.
He's better than you think.
7.5. Yeah, it's. I'll have to research that a little bit more, but yeah, I don't know. They have to find someone else to bat. Maybe you pat Goldschmidt second.
Well, you know who you bat second if they really want to do this right. They have a minor leaguer named Tyler O'Neill.
Well,
that's who you bring up to bat second.
Yeah,
that's the way to go. But
Nolan Gorman pulls a Juan Soto and gets up there quickly. I know that's not going to happen, but that would be funny.
That'd be pretty sweet too.
Yeah.
All right, you mentioned some deeper names. After pick 300, it starts with the likes of Kiki Hernandez, who I think could be in for a really nice year. I don't mind him at all. You're talking a guy that could hit 20-plus home runs after pick 300. That's something to like. What are some of the other guys you like down there? Because you mentioned a handful. Like Dansby Swanson could be that guy. If you got room to stash Didi Gregorius, not the worst thing you can do. But there's options. It's just not sexy.
I was just going to say there isn't a ton here. I feel like we found more with as crazy as it sounds, we found more with different positions that weren't that deep. And now all of a sudden, I think because we haven't found more, is we're really getting down to like literally the 30th shortstop and all the way 30 to 40. Maybe if you want to stash a Brendan Rodgers and you think that Hampson isn't going to really get the job done, you want to stash him at 471. That would be somebody kind of same with Bo Bichette. There's more of a stash here. I know you talked about Tim Beckham. That could be an option at 513. Once upon a time, Orlando Arcia would be a guy where, especially where he is right now, I think he's 389 that you could get some cheap steals. I'm not sure that that's the case anymore. I mean, he really didn't play a ton last year. They went with Travis Shaw at second and whatever. He only got 348 plate appearances and he only stole 7 bases, and that power went away from what it was in 2017. So did the walks, and the K percentage went up like 5%. So I'm not sure that's another guy you can get there. So like you said, nothing really sexy here other than guys that you could possibly stash. Like I'm not touching Scott Kingery again.
No, Kingery is a tilting one. A couple others that aren't really great, but use them to start the season, and then they can be droppable. If they have a hot streak, trade them just because the playing time should be there decent enough at their draft spots to start the year. Troy Tulowitzki and Freddie Galvis. They are not great, but you're talking pick 451 and pick 509. They're two guys that you can take a peek at and kind of use them, trade them if you need to. Otherwise, don't worry about them. Guys like I'd rather take them over Jordy Mercer, but he's another one that goes super late. That's going to be playing every day. That's the biggest thing. Going to be playing every day. Take your chance, see what happens. Nick Ahmed is another one. See if you can ride a hot streak, but nothing that I'm thinking about every day. Like basically pick 30 and above are guys I could see playing from start to finish in the year for me. After that, it's more what can I do with them when I need them.
Do you think that Tulo is actually going to play? That's the real question.
See, it's like it changes every time I look at it. Originally he's going to be the shortstop, and they go sign LeMahieu. Now, he's not going to be playing, but then different beat reporters are saying he's going to play probably 4 or 5 times a week, which at that pick, not bad. I'll take my chances there. It's just tough. He might not. That's the biggest thing. He kind of one of those, you either take a chance on him now and drop him to start the year, or hopefully your drafts later and you get some info coming out of spring training. But if he's going to play 4 to 5 times a week, I think he's worth a shot that late.
Yeah, the only thing that could come into play here for him to get at bats is if Luke Voigt really sucks and they move Andahar over to first and LeMahieu over to third, because they did mention that LeMahieu, they're going to try to have LeMahieu play everywhere. Then he could get some play at shortstop. That's where I could see him getting at bats. And I'm not a huge believer in Luke Voigt. We'll have to see what happens. Same thing with Greg Bird. We have laughed about that forever because that guy will never stay healthy. That would be the only sort of wrinkle for him to get some at bats.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting to see how Voigt goes. I'm trying to become a believer just because of the draft value, but it's tough. It's a tough one, to say the least.
Oh, other than do you not believe in your boy Brandon Crawford, or?
Well, I was going to mention, I don't think he's going to be like a rock star by any means, but he is one of those guys that if you're looking at, say your normal guy gets hurt, or because he gets streaky at times, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Beginning of the season.
He'll surprise you. Even when he's not been great, he's hit 250 or better pretty much every season. He's hitting you 13, 14, 15 plus home runs every year. His numbers aren't horrible for a middle infielder, is basically what I'm trying to say. And he plays a lot of baseball. He's a Gold Glover, so he's not getting taken off the field even if he's not hitting well. He isn't the worst, like late round, I need a middle infielder. I wouldn't per se stash him on my bench. I think it's kind of a wasted bench spot. But if you kind of let the position go and you're almost around pick 400, you need a middle infielder, he's not the worst option.
It's really too bad, Bubba, that he had such a bad second half, because if you got him late in a really deep league and you played him, I mean, it was 292, 10 homers, 42 runs, 39 RBIs. He gave you a couple steals, and that you would have taken that from him at the beginning of last year and been like, I got literally 2 great months in May and June of him, because April he sucked too. So if you somehow picked him up and rode that streak, that helped you a lot. And then the second half, he just fell off a cliff at 193 average, only 4 homers. He had 15 RBIs in the second half. That's it. Yeah. It would have killed you. But at that point, you probably didn't really have him. So if you can somehow get the same first half from him, you would take that all day.
Yeah, he's been an all-star before, and it wasn't just because of his defense. He can hit the ball. The crazy part by looking at all that is he's actually 32 years old, which I didn't think he was that old already. That's pretty depressing. But that's Giants in a nutshell.
3 more years of him.
Yep. It's going to be so much fun. So much fun in the next few years.
But they talked to Bryce Harper.
Oh, dude, don't get me started on that. I have a text thread of some buddies that they're great guys. They like sports. They're just not super knowledgeable in sports. They tried telling me Bryce Harper's not going to get paid and he's not worth the finances, and that just turned into a rabbit hole if I was just going nowhere fast. So, yeah.
And then what about are we stashing Didi, or is that just kind of a lost cause because we're looking at July maybe at the earliest?
I think if you have room at the end of your draft, go for it. Just be prepared to drop him when you need to get someone. I have no problem stashing him. If you can afford to stash him, I believe it was his non-throwing arm, so he's going to be able to rock and roll when he gets back. So I think you're going to slide him right on in. If he comes in July, August, September, he could probably still hit you 10 plus home runs at least. Like he could probably put up Brandon Crawford numbers in 2 months.
Yeah, especially in that ballpark for sure. Last one for me, Bubba. I just want to get your thoughts on Elvis Andrus at pick 175. I like him a lot. I really do. I know, he had a rough season. He was hurt, but if you can somehow get a little bit of that 2017 where he gets to, maybe not 20 homers, but like say what you want about Derek Carty, but the bat has him at 14 homers, 18 stolen bases, and 278. If you can get that from, 175, that's good value.
If you can get that, I think it's outstanding. I'm just going to say, listen to, because I'm with you. I was with you. I'm still, I think, with you. But I recorded a podcast with Rob Silver this morning,
Yep.
and he had some very interesting things to say about Elvis Andrus. And he's not a believer in these projections, just put it that way. So, yeah, that's what I did. I said, He's also a big believer in Luke Voigt. So go check it out. But, yeah, it was fun. But and he's a very knowledgeable guy, so I respect his opinion. But I was confused because I know Elvis was injured a lot last year. Like I'm not expecting 20 home runs,
No, me
but
either.
I still expect him to steal, like you're saying. And I think the average is pretty legit. So like I want to say he's going to be able to do it, but man, it's just one of those. It's like when you like you said where he's going right now though. Do you like? I'd almost take Medrizaro right before him. Well, it's like damn, it's all like 35 picks earlier now. That's changed a ton. But like, I'd probably take Paul DeYoung or Jorge Polanco instead of Elvis Andrus.
I'm taking him over DeYoung because I'm going to find power somewhere else.
Yeah, I'll probably find stolen bases somewhere else.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
that's the thing with Andrus. If he steals bases, he's pretty much – I'm not going to say he's dead weight everywhere else, but unless he gets you the 80-80 and the runs and RBIs, he's not doing a ton much outside of maybe a 265 average.
Okay.
That's my only concern. And hey, that's the fun part about baseball is anything can happen. I guess you never know, but that's just kind of where my head's at on the situation.
Toughest fantasy sports strategy in all of them. I mean, football is easy, basketball is whatever, and then hockey. I don't even touch hockey, but yeah, it's tough because there's so many different ways to go.
A guy goes 1 for 4, and he's almost considered Hall of Famer. So anything can happen. Anything can happen.
That's for sure.
But all right, that'll wrap us up this week a little quicker than normal, thanks to MLB owners ruining baseball. But we'll be back with you with episode 98 next week, and get Mo on Twitter at Boston_Mo. I'm on Twitter at BDentric, the podcast at Around Bases Pod. If you give us a rating and review on iTunes, we'd much appreciate it. We'll keep going through the fantasy previews and get going with some team previews and all that good stuff here as the season gets closer. Pitchers and catchers report like next week. Yes. There's a lot going on. So at least we'll have best shape of their life stories and stuff to talk about. So that'll always be good. But until then, this was Around the Base with Bubba Mo, episode 97. Catch you guys later.
See you.